stressed, anxious, or short on time, then do we have the time warping show for you. Today we'll talk about how to bend time, manipulate time, and almost nearly suspend time to give you the breather you need. That plus we'll talk about teachers' visits, unconditional love, receiving love, bathroom remodels, mountain bike meditation and madness, epic hikes, second lines or something better, glacial lakes, internet hiccups, evening walks, oatmeal pancakes, kitty emotion code, and what in the world coyotes swimming the backstroke have to do with anything. So, welcome back to the show, CJ. Are you ready to
I am
shine?
ready to shine. Woo! That's
Woohoo!
my new ode to your Colorado. I'm doing the lasso each time.
Very,
Woohoo!
very. So, how are you doing this week? Before we dive into this mega list here in a nice short period of time.
I am doing great. I had mentioned to you in our notes that my teacher came to visit. And so my teacher from Berkeley, Swami K. Chartanarta, was here, and he was presenting at the bookstore here, and he presented at my house. And so I had three different events that I was kind of like juggling around and making sure happened. And we had like, I don't know, 30 whatever in one, I think 35 in one, and 20 at the other, and 16 and 17 in my house. It's just like chaos. But can I tell you the funniest thing that happened, Michael? So, talking about time,
Did it have to do with Sir Meowsers?
no, it did not. Although that was extremely bizarre. I was still laughing after the show. After I don't did what comments did we get? I don't even know if it's showed yet. But that was weird to show. Okay, so following the Sir Mauser show, what I thought was the funniest thing is how Sir Mauser's has like a classier and kind of a classier voice. He has like this
Why,
British
yes, I do.
accent. I thought it was very funny. Okay, so that's Saturday. Um, uh, there was my teacher's plane got canceled three times. He was supposed to arrive at 4. So he arrived at the airport at 12 for like a 1 o'clock flight. So he got there early, and his flight just kept on getting canceled until he arrived at 6:45, and his presentation was at 7. And normally
Wow.
he should have been like, with pretty kind of congested traffic, maybe be at our house like at 7:15. So I thought, well, I've got to go down and hold the fort down between 7 when the class began and 7:15 when I thought he was going to arrive.
You need to
So
warp some time.
I needed to warp time. So talking about time, so I wasn't quite sure what to do, but I meditated beforehand, and it said, just do like ask some questions, do some facilitating, ask why people are there, talk about how you know Swami K. Chartanarta. And you can ohm a couple times to get people in the energetic spirit, and should be good. So I have at least something for like 15 to 20 minutes of material. All right. Well, my husband drives him from the airport, and there's only one lane down of 3-lane highway. So my husband takes an hour and 15 minutes. So I have to
Wow,
hold
you held
down.
space for a long time.
I held space for an hour. I thought I was going to die at one point. I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe. Because had I known I was going to have to teach an hour and 15-minute class, and I probably, even in the short period of time that I had to prepare when I realized that his flight was going to get delayed one more time, I would have come up with like more material. But I only thought I had 15 minutes to fill. So I was just at one point we did 35 ohms, and then I taught them the double breath, which is part of his practice, which frankly I'm not 100% certain I know very well, but I know it well enough to like, well, it's close enough and it's related to the practice. So I taught them the double breath, and then I I I just was meditating, and then finally I thought, okay, we got to take a break because I've pulled out all the stops. And it was funny because I'm meditating and I'm opening up my eye to make sure he's not walking in the door. It was hilarious. And I don't even know how and why these people stayed with me for an hour, 15 minutes while I just flailed around. But luckily, because we do this radio show, I think I'm used to just, and the Schmauser thing was,
Flailing
the
around.
the day before. I somewhat like prepared to just like wing things. And anyway, so that was my unexpected 1 hour and 15-minute class. And here's the thing,
So
I could teach many, many 1 hour and 15-minute classes if you said to me, just wing and teach something, but I didn't really want to teach. Like I could have gone through all sorts of energetic techniques on like clearing yourself. I could have taught EFT. I have like an hour's worth that I could teach of a lot of different things. But people were there for not the CJ show. They were there for this particular practice. So I felt like I had to stay within the lanes of this practice. So
yeah.
anyhow.
But when we're talking, to bring it home here, although I'm curious about the double breath, but I'm going to resist.
Yes.
But we are talking about warping time, and I think meditation is a great way to do that.
Yeah.
Since we've gotten in this house here, our schedule has been even more, not challenging. I don't want to use that word. It's been the reverse of challenging. Each more full because we've had to pack more into less quote time because we had to move in the middle of things. And one of the things I'm finding myself doing is, before my automatic writing, more and more time meditating to build the pause into the day. My meditation doesn't seem to be very deep or very profound. The mind is fairly restless as there's so many doings right now, but just taking that extra time to be is actually building more time, in a sense, into my day. Time doesn't feel as rushed because I'm meditating. And you may have had that experience, awkward though it may have been. You may have had that experience too, that meditation shifted time a bit for you guys.
Yeah, it did. I mean, surprisingly, I talked to a couple of people, either that I knew or didn't know. They're like, "You're doing fine." Like, if it seemed like you were nervous and scared, but like we were all with you, and there's not a problem at all. And I was like, okay, because I felt bad, like it's like starting a movie an hour later and just doing a little song and dance beforehand. But yeah, the meditation I think helped everyone stay calm. So even if they were upset, just meditating can't be a hurtful thing to do. And so I think people were pretty calm. And by the time we got there, he didn't have time to we basically found a way for him to present for an hour, even though he was supposed to present for an hour and a half, and the store opened late. And they got something that they weren't expecting, which is an energetic transmission. So everything I think worked out perfectly, but it was a little bit stressful.
Woo!
Yes. So what have you been up to?
Oh boy, we've had nature, we've had everything. When I talk about warping time, so we haven't had too much time to play with, but in the time we've had to play, we've taken it away from the house, as far away from the house as we can get. And when I talk about the concept of warping time, I may have discussed this with you on the show before. It's the idea that the farther we travel, the farther away time seems from when we started. So for instance, if you fly to visit your son in North Carolina, even though it's not that long of a flight, it seems like eons ago when you get there. Right. Your life in Seattle seems so long ago. That is a warping of time. So we've taken hikes up in our backyard, and our backyard goes to BLM land and then goes to national park land. Getting up and away, we can actually climb up within 3 miles and see almost a 360-degree view of 14,000-foot peaks, with Mount Sopris, a 13,000-foot peak mountain, right in the middle.
Nice.
You go up that short distance. By the time you come back, because everything was so radically different where you were, by the time you come back, it seems like eons ago.
Yeah.
It can be a short period of time, but because of the distance, and maybe also because it's a foreign distance, it seems like a world ago. Now, nature certainly helps. That is distancing yourself as well. And so what we've been doing is this yin-yang game of, we have to work, but then how far away from the work can we take ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a hike? Now I've been playing with these mountain bike rides, which have just been, I haven't done a Colorado mountain bike ride till this week in 20 years. And I'm like, oh my God, how did I forget just how incredible this was?
Mm.
And just building in that distance is helping to slow everything down. Then, of course, we're being more present out there. We got on a hike about 2.5 miles from here, and we found a little, I don't even know if you want to call it a pond. I guess, it's a decent sized little pond. There were ducks in it. There had been cows there a few days before, but there weren't at that time. There were geese. And then we saw a couple coyote, one coyote, then two, then a third. And it was because we were present. We spent time there rather than saying, ooh, pond, checked it off the list. And we
Mm-hmm.
saw something we've never seen in our lives before, which
Mm.
is coyotes jumping into the water to have fun.
Oh,
There was
how
no way that
fun.
that
That's
they could
so
catch
cool.
ducks. There were ducks in there, but a coyote's not going to outswim a duck. And they were just swimming around having fun, being in that present moment, taking that time in the present moment too, particularly with nature, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
helps warp time. You come back, even if it's only been an hour adventure, it seems like both a day has passed and it seems like all the things that you had to get done really, really quickly. Now there's more space, there's more pause because the mind isn't worrying so fast.
Mm-hmm. We had a very similar kind of experience. We went up to Point Defiance for Mother's Day. So the kid said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "I would really like to go for a hike." And so we went up to Point Defiance, and it was only an hour and a half drive. But it just, that drive felt like we went on a mini vacation just by doing that hour and a half drive. And anytime we go on vacation has that similar feeling. Like if we are on, when we're on our family vacations, we could spend a week and it feels like 2 weeks of time has passed by because the days are
Yes.
so full. So I understand the idea of warp time. And I just had that recently by going into nature as well. So it's a wonderful thing. And it feels like sometimes time goes quickly though, and as well. Like this week has gone by. It was like, really? It's Friday already? Like not my teacher was here just last Saturday, but it feels like just yesterday. So I don't really know what warps time to make it faster or what quickens time either because I feel like I've been pretty
What
present.
quick To me, what quickens time is a lack of pause between things. You get a lot done, but if you didn't have those in outs for me, and maybe you did have a lot of pauses this week,
I
if I
did.
don't have a lot of pauses, then no matter how much I get done, time seems like it's accelerated. If you
Mm.
had the pauses, the only thing I can think of is, were you having fun?
You know what? It's weird. I look at this week and I have no idea what I've done, but I didn't do any of the things that I'd hoped to do. And for whatever reason, I don't even care. I don't know why, but it's just
And now that's actually
stuff
a
has
big theme for
shifted.
today.
Yeah.
That's a big theme is when you don't feel hurried or rushed because you're more present, because you're plugging in, because you're warping time, you're able to let go more.
Hmm.
I had a beautiful interview, one of my all-time favorite interviews earlier today with Matt Kahn. And we just got a second line set up in internet here. Everything should be good to go. And right before I speak with him, and he's one of my all-time favorite spiritual authors, the internet went from acceptably fast speeds to a crawl.
No.
And I couldn't change it for the interview. You can hear him. He's clear, but it's not crisp. His video is probably fairly pixelated, but watchable. And all I could do is go, that's the best I can do right now.
Yeah.
And because I haven't hurried myself through the week, we still have boxes, we still have everything because we're mid move. I joke about oatmeal pancakes. All Jessica had time to do between interviews because she didn't want to clank in the kitchen with me in the interview, and it's a double interview Friday. All she could do is turn the oatmeal into pancakes, which was a cool idea. But I didn't even know you could do this.
That's hilarious. I didn't realize. I guess if your oatmeal is cooked, you could turn it into pancakes. Just fry it. Yeah, okay.
So she did. I think she may have added a little bit of organic flour to it and some water to it, so it's a little more constituted. And she goes, "Do you know what this is?" I'm like, "It's pancakes." She goes, "Try again." I'm like, "I don't know." She's like, "It's the oatmeal you had for breakfast." That's
Jessica.
moving life. You move,
I love
you
it.
deal, you roll. But if you don't either pack things too full or you take yourself continuously in and out and in and out, then you aren't, it's not like your muscle is completely fatigued from holding even a bag of groceries. You hold it continuously, your arm completely gives out. If you pick them up, put them down, pick them up, put them down, you're much better off. If you do that in life, then when things like the Matt Kahn interview doesn't go quite the way you'd like, or you get out for lunch and you've got reconstituted oatmeal pancakes, which were good,
Yeah.
you're like, it's all perfect. And who would complain if we've got food? It's all perfect, just as it is. And
I'm laughing because I
yes,
had the
they
same
were.
thing. I'm only laughing because I share technology, right? Because I sent a text to you and saying like, "What have you had this happen?" Where I had one one beautiful interview on Tuesday that didn't. It only recorded the guest, but it didn't record my sound or my video. No, my sound. It recorded my video, but not the sound. So then I went and I thought I updated everything, and then I did another interview yesterday, so it was on the radio, which it worked out perfectly, and the sound engineer recorded it on the radio. And then I went to go look for it, and then I didn't record the video, nor did it recount the sound. And I was like, "What can you do? Like, there is nothing you can do. You just go, well, at least they got the radio." And he's like, "Hey, is the YouTube available?" And I was like, "Nope, no YouTube. Don't have any YouTube for you. Sorry. What can you do?" But then
What
I did have some extra time because I didn't have to go and do all the video editing for it. So
There you go. And
yes,
and it's really a letting go. In old school Michael days, if something like that had happened, and we did lose video on our, I think, second show here where we had the same thing with the call recorder, is old school Michael would have been like, why didn't you check more carefully? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And I'd like to think I've moved past that. And who knows, the future may present me with more opportunities to stay present in myself. But I'm like, what can you do?
you can't do
What can you
anything.
do?
Yeah, what
It's
could you
it's
do?
nothing. Absolutely. But we do have the unique ability as human beings, even when we couldn't do nothing, to find a reason to pick on ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. I have
We're
to.
really good at that.
So I have to tell you some. So when my teacher came, I was
Mhm.
meditating, and it's called a Kundalini Sadha, so a transmission. So he's giving you a Shakti transmission. And so what he said, and it was really great because I got to spend some one-on-one time with him, although like 5 minutes in between everything because the plane got canceled. Like there was just we're always kind of running late for whatever reason. But I said, when you're doing these Shakti transmissions, what are you doing? And I'm piecing together several conversations that I've had, that he's given lectures and conversations. But he said, I basically am focusing you. I'm basically centering your energy so it all runs up and down this central channel, so that you can have your energy run up from your base of your spine all the way up. Because when you are able to get this energy to flow this way, then what happens is you could say it's a connection to heaven on earth. But basically, what you're doing is you're connecting to your individuated consciousness is actually connecting to the uber consciousness. And I said, so when you're doing it, what do you what do you what do you see? And he's like, oh, the horrors. He's like, I see everything. I could see everything, but I choose not to focus on that. And I said, so what are you focusing on? And he said, I focus on the um, essence, or the consciousness that all of us has with our highest self. So I focus on that higher consciousness that is in you. So I'm looking at that, And so I said, really? And he's like, yeah, because you're God and I am too. And we all have that God-like self. So when I look at that, that's what I see. Um, it seems like you want to say something, but I want to, but go ahead. Tell me what I know you want
No,
to say
no,
something.
there isn't. I'm fascinated. I'll go woo, but I'm fascinated by this. It's a continuation of a conversation I had with Matt Kahn earlier today, because we are all that. But this is just fascinating. So please continue.
So anyway, I was sitting down. So that's what this is what the practice is about, is he sits there and looks at you and looks at the godlike self that maybe you can't even see, and moves your energy towards the center with, and by the act of grace, not necessarily him. It's like, if by God's grace, by Shiva's grace, what will happen is someone's like, their pilot light turns on, and then they have a Kundalini awakening, and then they can actually feel very strongly the presence of energy running through the Sushumna. And then after that, they become one with the energy and realize that they're one with God. So that's the whole practice. Anyhow, he's looking at me, and last April when I went to the retreat, I was looking at him, and his whole face looked like it was my father's face. And I thought, oh my gosh, do I have daddy issues? I'm projecting my father's face onto my teacher. And then I realized that, and during this meditation, that part of what he's doing is when you actually activate your energy up, inside that energy is conscious, and there's energy down, which is consciousness. And what happens is he snaps you into basically that energy snaps you into different realities. So people were reporting that they would look at his face and like his face would vanish, or they'd look at his face and you'd only see his eyes. So I realized this retreat, that part of what's happening is he snaps you into a different level of reality. So I'm looking at him, but his face is gone. Or his face had my father's face. And I thought, oh, I get it. He represents unconditional love. Like my dad represented unconditional love. And so here's this person actually projecting unconditional love to me, like looking at my essence, seeing it and going, I love you. And I see you, and I see the deepest, most beautiful part of you. And he's just staring into, he actually, it's an open eye transmission. So he's staring into your eyes. And as I was sitting there, I realized, like, wait a second. Okay, if I follow the logic, then he's looking at me because I have unconditional love in myself then too. So I don't really need,
Mhm.
even though I see my father's face being projected and it represents unconditional love for my dad, and that my dad played that role for me. And then this teacher, Nadaji, Swami K. Chernurta, plays that role for me. But then I thought, wait, I can play that role for myself if I can just
Yeah.
unconditionally love myself. And that was like, wow, wait a second. So if I just tune in and say, I don't have to look for unconditional love external to me, but that it's already internal to me, and all I have to
Yeah.
do is look for it inside of me, what would life be like if I just didn't have to look out for, going back to our conversation, bringing it back. Okay, so your interview with Matt Kahn didn't record the way that you wanted to, right? The lines didn't work as you expected. And what you could say is that, okay, the old Michael and the old CJ, when things didn't record for me, would have been like, CJ, you should have checked the blah, blah, blah. Michael, you should have checked, And it's like, no, if you really unconditionally loved yourself, that means you would love yourself with no conditions, which means that
Mhm.
regardless, you did the best you can. And it's good. It's all good. It doesn't matter whether the recording happened or not. It doesn't, I have to actually do the same interview all over again next Tuesday.
Oh,
So,
wow. And and even if this is the crazy part when it comes to self-love, even if you didn't do the best you could, you still love yourself completely unconditionally.
yeah, without
And
condition.
that's, yes, that's hard for us because you're saying, I did the best I could do, CJ. But if we knew that we didn't do the best we can do, can we still love us? And we've been taught since we were kids, love actually comes with strings. It's performance based.
Yeah. Did you get, and that's why this week was so interesting because I didn't get any of my things on my checklist done. Not one
Mhm.
solitary thing I didn't write. I didn't update the online course materials I was planning on doing. I didn't do any of it. I didn't read for the guests. I didn't do anything. Even the things that I did do became undone. Right? I did those interviews and they didn't really quite work out. So, and I actually thought to myself, I sat and thought, wow, can you have a week like this? And it's been hard because there's a little nagging voice inside of me going like, "Oh, you didn't do anything this week." But it's not true because I did do things for other people. Like I did do things for myself. Like I got chiropractic. I got acupuncture twice this week, and I had someone work on my neck from doing cranial sacral. So that's considered not getting anything done. But it's like loving to myself. So like, can that be enough? That was a question for me this today.
Yeah. And it's something that Jessica and I have talked about, which is with a move, many of the big picture items don't appear like they're being done quote unquote fast enough right now. But there's so many small detail items. Shift this, do that. You're over with this bank now because you're in this state now. Take care of this minor detail here. And that all adds up that you really owe it to yourself to be incredibly loving, even when everything you thought was your priority on the checklist turns to be the opposite.
Right.
It turns out to be the opposite of what you get done.
Right. Yeah. So you got these small little details, like you got a new bank, you got a new, you're looking at probably figuring what the new ATM is. Like, that's okay, right? Because you had to do that at one point, right?
Everything gets to get done. And so if you don't have the small details on the list, like it took us 3 weeks to get her a second line for internet, it took
Mm-hmm.
us 3 weeks. Yesterday was the first time, not because of us, but the way the system works out before we could actually throw out trash. You had to, 2 weeks in is when we got the trash can, but then you get to fill the trash can, and it's not until 3 weeks that your trash is first picked. They take time.
Right. Yeah, it's funny because especially with technology, it's so tricky because when I really think about it, probably an hour or so was spent fiddling around with the technology. Like there's a percentage of time this week just fiddling around with the technology to just get it to work, to figure out why wasn't it recording, what updates do I need, all that stuff. But it's somehow that those are, like you said, like small details that need to happen in order for the technology to work, but they're not accounted for in your action item list. So what
Bingo.
do you do when that happens, right? Like when the interview with Matt Kahn doesn't happen the way, like what do you do? Do you just bash yourself and go, no, why didn't you do that? Or why didn't it's like, well, I had other stuff that I did. I got my
I
US
think
bank account.
it's important to reevaluate or step back, and even going beyond asking, is this reasonable, is a great question to ask. But then even if you think it's reasonable and it doesn't get done, to understand that there is an ebb and flow to all of this. And I think that helps you to warp time as well. To understand there are going to be times where all of a sudden you get 10 things done in the span that you thought you were going to get one or two things done. And other times when it feels like you're moving through the ether and nothing's going to get
Yeah.
done. And it comes back to, it's a philosophy I've shared on many shows, and I talk about it from a swimming perspective. Go slow to go fast.
Hmm.
When you try to swim fast, water's heavy. You fight against the water, you end up going slower. You get sloppy, you go slow. If instead you relax into the water and don't try to fight it, then you're more slippery like a fish.
Hmm.
In this case, if you try to fight to get everything done when there are all these little niggly details that need to take place, you're fighting against the water. Time is going to go into hyperspeed. Your brain's going to go into hyperspeed, but nothing's going to actually get done.
Right. Or you do something that,
If you
yeah, three.
I was just going to say, if you relax into it instead, either the more takes place, or more importantly, the attachment to it dissolves. Whether it's done or not, you feel much better. It doesn't mean you won't get anything done in the world. In fact, everybody who's listening to this, if you listen to self-help shows, it means you do a lot of doings, and we may get to work on the being side of things, but you are a doer. Sure, we can organize more. We can do more time management. A plug for our upcoming Magical Morning Routine for Busy Spiritual Seekers program. But there's no chance that you're not going to do anything. So easing up may help you tremendously.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's funny. One of the things you were talking earlier about doing meditation early in the morning as a way of expanding time. And one of the things that I don't know if I mentioned this to you or not, but my teacher, my spiritual coach, I was talking to her and she said, you have to there's a point in which you reach in your spiritual practice where there's like an infinite number of things that you can solve, problems to solve, problems that you have, issues that you have, and things that you should be doing. And instead of focusing on those, moving to a place where she suggests in her practice that you focus on your third eye and just say, God, please, or Shiva, or consciousness, and you say cheeseburger in the sky, you focus and say, please take the suffering and pain away. Please just give me clarity to tell me what it is that is the most important thing for me to do. And in fact, when Nada G came here, he said the other thing he would add is just like, what is God's will? And in fact, he would say that anything that is not God's will is willful action, and that creates karma. So, for example, let's say that I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to get up. I need to go figure out how to get my son to stop playing the computer. And I went over and I was like, you know what, I wasn't thinking, you need to actually get off the computer. That's like my willful action. Because if I thought and said to God, like, what is it that I need to do? And I'm about to go talk to my son about computer and yell at him. Is that the right thing? And God said, yes. And go forth and proceed.
Then you've got permission.
Yeah. But otherwise, it's like anytime you go and do that, and I didn't do that, but just as an example, that would have been something I would have done in the past. But as an example, that just gives you a sense, that's like what willful action is when you're not tuning into what what thy will is. It's like what your will is. And I've thought a lot about that. So maybe the one way of looking at this whole scenario is, well, it's not your will. Like, you could have said, well, Matt, let's actually just do this another time because it's just not working, but you're like, okay, well, I guess that's just, and now we're talking about it. Maybe it was supposed to be, maybe that interview was supposed to be digitized or, whatever, pixelated, so that we could have this conversation, so that someone who's listening to this conversation could just relax. Who knows?
There's a lot. You're so right. And that's actually the title of his book. Everything is here to help you.
What a plug.
Even this. I love Matt. I love Matt. I love Matt. I love Matt. But we overfill our days. We habitually overfill our days. And not only do we overfill our days, but at work, because we're good people, we continuously overpromise. Mm-hmm. If you could get something done for the boss in an hour on your best day, you're going to promise an hour. But that's on your best day if nobody interrupts you. And when really it typically takes you 2 or 3. And so we overpromise to please others, and then we put ourselves in a trap. Mm-hmm. And so another piece of time is, it's going to sound sacrilege, under promising to optimize efficiency. Mm-hmm. If you overpromise, you're going to bang your head into the wall. You're going to be going so fast, nothing's going to get done. If you underpromise, if you instead say 2 hours or even 3 hours, the guilt and shame in you will drive you nuts until you practice this a bunch. But then you will be able to get it done in that 2 or 3 hours, probably actually less, making you a bit of a hero. But you won't have the internal resistance, the shakes, the nervousness, the anxiety, the worry that actually makes you unable to get it done, even in the time you promised, and that has you basically jamming your gears. That will be gone because you built in the time you actually needed. Along those lines, but completely differently. And this goes along with what Matt was saying too. Looking at our to-do lists in the evening is the most surefire way to feel like a failure. Mm-hmm. Instead, write down what I call your daily wins. He would say, write down the good things that took place in the day. Now you're going to feel like you accomplished something, which each and every one of us has. Get the daily wins down. Doesn't mean you can't do the old Ben Franklin method of copying over what you didn't get done for the next day. But the most important thing to focus on is, what did I succeed at? What did I get done? Even if it's just getting to work and getting back safely, that's actually huge.
Right.
A certain percent of people don't come back.
Right.
So get down your daily wins, and that shifts everything. The more you do these little shifts, the more time you feel you have because you're not revving the motor at full speed. That was my big gift to myself this week. Huge week. All right, let's put some pause in here. Let's put some love in here. Let's put some gentleness. Last night, Jessica's like, I'm pulled too thin. I don't know what to do. I rushed to get my work done as quickly as I could so I could help her. And I said, what can I do to help you this evening? And she said, why don't we just go take a walk? And I'm like, woohoo!
Yeah.
That built more of a renewal, of a recharge than anything we could have done to pound through work together. Because there will always be work to pound through.
It's funny because my husband and I did. You're like, where should we go to eat? And I was like, why don't? And I said, I didn't get my steps in. And we're like, well, why don't we walk over to the lake and go to dinner there? And it's like, that's a great idea. And then just that walk was exactly. It was like the thing to just solve the problem, get our steps in, and have like a little treat of togetherness during that time. It was quite lovely. I do think that so just it was a very similar kind of thing that happened with Jessica and you. I have one more thing I want to share too, which was that as I was contemplating unconditional love and thinking about the conditions I put on myself in order to love myself, there was one that's like a very interesting exercise to just say, what are the conditions that you put on yourself in order to love yourself? And a lot of it was like getting things done, right? Or being a good person, or not letting people down. There's just a long litany of things. And if you could just love yourself, even if none of those conditions applied, I don't know, I think it's just an interesting thing to contemplate.
I love it. I love it. I was having a discussion out loud, I think beforehand, before our interview, and the MatCon interview took longer because of all the technical challenges. And I'm going, I have 5 minutes to meet with CJ. I don't have my pre-sheet done yet. This isn't done. That's not done. It's all okay, Michael. I still love you. And I actually said that out loud. And I was like, wow, that's so cool.
I love myself for saying that.
Of course. I love myself for loving myself for saying that I love myself. Talk about a positive, endless loop to get lost in.
Exactly. So the thing,
it's easy to have that I'll kick myself for kicking myself for kicking myself.
Exactly. It's so much different where it's like, oh, I just love myself for doing that. I'm so great. So when I was sitting there thinking about all the conditions that I put on myself in order to love myself, and how I don't put them on a lot of other people, I just put them on myself.
Of
And
course.
then I thought about in the instructions, he was going through like the very basic instructions of the Kundalini Saha, where he is actually beaming down like life energy right through your center and seeing, the essence of you. And he said and people are like, what am I supposed to do? And he said, just receive it. And I thought, wow, just think about what that message is all about. There's unconditional love, there's love all around you. You just have to receive it. And I thought, yeah. I also don't receive it. I don't know if you have that too, where people will say, "Oh, Michael, you're just so great, and you did this, and I really love that you did that," and you be like, "Oh yeah, thanks," But it really was also all these other people that helped me, so you don't receive it, you kind of deflect it or include other people, and I thought, God, what would it be like if it's like love is for free? There's love that's being beamed to you right now through the sky. What would you do if you just let it all permeate you, be like just absorb it like a sponge? Don't try to like, oh, I'm not deserving, or maybe other people need this energy. It's infinite, so it's okay. It's not like you're going to hoard it by just taking it. Just take it because it's infinite. And it was just so interesting approaching life through that. How about if you just received the love that's all around you? Because the message that I got intuitively is it is all around you all the time, but we don't receive it.
Mountain bike ride I took a couple days ago, and actually yesterday. And the mountain biking has just been. I didn't even know I'd get back on a mountain bike. It's just it woke up something that I had from a long, long time ago. Woke up something deep inside of me. Yesterday I went out for this mountain bike ride, and I turned it into a meditative experience, repeating a mantra of love, of
Mm,
we are love all the time. We forget that we are love. And what does it mean to be connected to God all the time? Well, we couldn't be anything other than that anyway. It's not possible. But if we remind ourselves of this, remind ourselves of that connection that we are love in each moment, I believe it can change everything.
mm.
And so I had the most blissful, woohoo,
No,
over
that's
the top mountain
beautiful.
bike ride, repeating to myself a mantra of love.
Mm,
And I came back. Certainly, time gets warped as you go a distance away, but I believe mantras are another powerful tool of creating that space. And so I created the space and then reminded myself, just like you're talking about, and came back and I'm like, life is so, so good. And it's something we can avail ourselves to using a mantra. I am love. I am loved. I am the God within. Whatever it is for us that works. If you repeat that, if you make that sort of like your oxygen for 15 minutes, for 15 hours, it completely shifts your energetic state.
mm-hmm. It absolutely does. I actually was in this state after the meditation, and I walked out and I looked up at the sky, and it literally took my eyes like, like it literally took my breath away because I was like, oh my God, it's exquisite. Like it's that way all the time. We're just like, sitting on our phones and running from one thing to another and not recognizing that love and beauty is all around us all the time. And so that was pretty cool to have that experience of looking up at the sky and the tree and just like
Woo-hoo!
literally taking your breath away. I just have one other thing that I had that I recognized too
Yeah.
is that, when people talk about opening your heart, generally it's like this. Like it's like you're opening your heart. Whenever I've had it in yoga classes, it's like, put your arms back and open your heart. And it seems as if you're opening something that is closed so that something outside of it can come in, which to me, that's at least in my mind how for whatever reason, when people talk about opening your heart, I think of it opening up the doors like the cupboards or, the shutters and letting the light shine in. But what's interesting is this time I recognize that your heart is always on. Your heart is always open. You're the one who puts the shutters on. So opening is more like opening from the inside out. Like the sun is inside of you. It's not does that make sense? It's not opening the shutter so the sun can come in. It's
It's pulling
opening
the curtains back.
yes, it's pulling, well, it's pulling, it's almost like you are the sun and you're pulling the curtains
Yeah.
back so the sun can be everywhere. Which for whatever reason, it was something where I'm like, wait a second, I've had it wrong this whole time. It's actually, your heart is always open. Your ego is the thing that throws the shutters on top of it. So take the shutters off and open your heart out. You don't have to receive anything in because it's already inside of you.
Woohoo! I did healing shutter work on our kitty cats a couple days ago.
Yes, tell me.
Lumiere he's the real sensitive one. He was one of our two feral rescue cats, and he's very, very ginger. He's not so keen on change. He's the one that runs and hide if people come and visit. And he's been off his A game or on guard since he came to the new house.
No.
And so a couple days ago, for an hour or so, no, less than that. And then 2 nights ago too, I did Dr. Bradley Nelson's emotion code work on him to remove some of those blockages to the light that is within. He's eating better. He's more energized. He's more himself.
Wow.
I had heard that you could do it on animals. I had done it on Sir Meowsers years ago with a good result, but forgot about that.
Right.
And it worked. You start
love
peeling away the
that.
lotion. So, woohoo!
Woo, that's awesome. Okay, so we have one more thing to cover. What's NTB Madness?
Well, Mountain Bike Madness is
Okay,
just,
so did
just
we
how
cover all your
exciting.
stuff? We talked about Madness.
The only
Epic
one we
Hikes?
didn't is the Glacial Lake behind me, which is where we hiked on Saturday.
Oh, beautiful.
So,
is that a picture from your
and
hike?
yep, that's the hike. That's the hike itself.
Ugh.
That is it, where a glowing light there in the center. Let's see if I can do some movie magic here. And you can see how it's glowing in the center of that glacial lake right there.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
As I
Wow.
disappeared myself, and I put a foot in and went through the ice. But I went to walk out on the ice, and I said, I don't think this ice can hold me. I'm like, but the worst that happens is it's probably only a few feet deep. I get cold. And so I took my first step and went down about a foot in. And as I'm standing there in the lake, 2 women came up who were hiking, and it wasn't filled with hikers, but 2 women came up and said, "Do you mind snapping our photo?" And so I snapped the photo for them before they realized that I was standing in the lake. And they're like, "That's dedication."
That's hilarious.
It was a hoot.
That's so funny. I love it. Well,
It was an
anything else?
absolute blast.
Anything else to wrap it up?
If you don't have time to meditate, meditate twice as long. If you feel short on time, step back from whatever you're doing. Instead of putting your foot on the gas, you will find more time in the day by taking your foot off of the gas. And going along the theme today, love yourself, love yourself, love yourself. There is no way to get everything done. It is an illusion, just like perfection is an illusion. What's most important isn't what you did or didn't do. When you're on your deathbed, that's not going to matter. How you treat others or have treated others, that's going to matter. How positive decisions you made, that's going to matter. And most importantly, how you treated yourself, that matters. So in each and every moment, no matter how busy the clock is, if instead of doing the old school way of, come on, Michael, come on, Lou, let's get her done. If instead you go to that place of, I love myself. I really love myself. We're going to be fine. We're going to be good. I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. That's what matters. That's the juice. And that truly will transform your life, not to mention your day. That's what I've got, CJ. Any more from you?
I'm good.
So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler and
CJ Lou from the Fired Up with CJ show.
saying, be well, have fun, love yourself up no matter what, no matter what. And if you want to go fast, get the foot off of the gas and out to nature as far away as you can. Get yourself lost and you'll feel much, much better. And above and beyond all else, shine bright.
Woo!
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show and would love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.